Yep.
Is this your first time doing a live, Ash?
Yeah, this is my first
Oh
time doing a
yeah.
live with you guys. Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised. Well, the first thing I want to say is congratulations on the close of that
Oh,
property I randomly posted on my story yesterday.
oh yeah. That was actually that was perfect timing
That was
because
perfect timing.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
because
awesome,
we
man.
were just jumping into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mike, the video I posted yesterday,
Yeah, yeah.
Ash posted today that he closed it.
All
So
Yeah.
right.
that property. So that's awesome. Congrats, man.
Thank
Congratulations,
you.
man.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a pretty cool deal. Just mostly working with
Yeah,
investors on that one. And obviously that's a different type of transaction compared to
absolutely. Yeah,
residential and
that was a
stuff. So
three.
yeah.
That's a three family, right?
Yeah, triple decker,
Nice.
East Boston. So that was nice.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, for those people who just joined and the people joining and kind of listening to the recording later on, this is Ash. He
Yeah.
is a fellow real estate agent. He's been in the business for 5 years. Is that right, Ash?
Actually, since like 2019. So
Okay, so more than me.
I
So
lose
you're
count.
closer to 7 years. I saw. It looks like I probably saw an older video. I was
Yeah.
filtering through where you said you were in there for 5 years. But Ash has been doing this since 2019. He's at Evo. He works with a
Yep.
lot of developers. I mean, what the main reason that we have him on the call on the live today is he's got a lot of experience. As a result of working with developers and as a result of working with the city of Everett. He's got a lot of experience and knowledge on zoning.
Yeah.
So, Ash, let's start with just like a quick intro about you.
Mhm.
Obviously, I said a few things already, but a quick intro about you and also what is zoning?
Yeah. So, just a bit about me. Obviously, me being in real estate in this profession, this is something that I've always wanted to do growing up. I've had family in real estate, and they've always pushed me in that direction. And obviously, just from my own self and my own understanding, being in this industry, you have to have a specific type of personality to be in this business. So it really suits me. I love negotiating. I love working with my clients. And then another thing about me too that goes hand in hand with this business is it's not just transactions. I'm also heavily involved in my community. I interact with a lot of the people that live in my community and get their perspective and also push that home ownership dream as well. So yeah,
Love it. Can
yeah.
you can you can you tell us really quickly a little bit about the work that you do with the city of Everett?
Yeah, so this work is it's really cool because it's something that I can tie into real estate. So me being on the zoning board, for the people that don't know what zoning is, it's basically a set of guidelines and codes that let homeowners or let people know, hey, this is what you can build in a specific lot, or this is what you can build in a specific district. So every city has their own zoning guidelines, and different parts of the city is split up into different zones.
Right.
So you'll have a multifamily zone or a zone specifically designated for single family. So in each zone, you can build specific type of real estate. So my work with the city of Everett is I have four other board members that I work alongside, and we get projects that come in, plans, whether it's a homeowner who wants to do an addition to their home or a developer who wants to build something. And we review those plans, we review the projects, and whether they're requesting a variance or there's different requests, and we review the plans, and based off what they're requesting, we decide whether or not we want to approve or deny whatever they're seeking. So,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So that's
Um,
just a brief, yeah.
and obviously being in that type of role, um, that's got to be invaluable for your client.
Oh, yeah, oh man, yeah. It's giving me a completely different
Yeah.
perspective on just zoning, the city, just people's quality of life, day to day interaction. So yeah, it's been a great experience.
Love that. Love
Yeah,
that. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah. Ash, thanks for coming on, man.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely,
Um,
Oh,
absolutely.
I'm
yeah.
so rude. Oh, you guys have never met before.
Yeah.
My
Yeah. It's good to meet you.
apologies. My apologies. Mike,
I
Ash,
don't expect
Mike.
much. anymore.
Yeah.
There was
Uh, but like
yeah.
Mike. So Ash, Mike's actually been in real estate longer than myself,
Oh wow.
longer than you, right? He's been doing this for some time. He's got tons of experience. As he lives in Dorchester, he knows the city really well. Has done all different types of deals. So, but when I mentioned to him, I'm like, hey, maybe we should try bring on Ash. He's like, he's on the zoning board in Everett, and might have some really good intel for us. He was psyched. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
he's got some questions for you, and I'll let him kick it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a very much an interest of mine because it really does dictate, like, once you know about different zoning requirements, you look at the city completely
Yeah.
different. You're like, why is that next to this, or why do all these three triple deckers in this area? Why is it laid out that way? So it really does dictate how things look and feel. So I guess just to get started, since you're on the board, and we've had some I'd say the biggest zoning conversations as of late have been, along the commuter rail for towns there, and then the ADUs, the additional dwelling units on properties that have been passed. So I guess just like, trends in the last year or two, maybe things that you've seen in Everett that you've passed like a change in, or what the city has been doing, because people forget that zoning really does dictate this housing shortage that we have, and being creative with that is going to help a lot of people. So yeah, just some trends in the last couple years to kick us off.
Yeah, I think definitely, like you said, zoning dictates a lot. I think one of the two pieces that you hit on that were very powerful were ADUs. And for people who don't know what ADUs are, it's an additional dwelling unit. So there's been a huge zoning overhaul, which is allowing homeowners to basically add an additional dwelling unit to their property. So sometimes you'll have a property with yeah.
What was the law or the zoning requirement before? Like, how did it change? What was it like before, and why was this so monumental?
So, I mean, before ADUs have always been sort of like you could have pushed for an ADU. I think with the zoning overhaul now, it's just making it more accessible. So you have to jump through less hoops in
Okay.
order to fully execute on your ADU, which is huge because right now in particular, you have families, like you said, there's been a huge housing shortage. And one thing that I've been seeing a lot on my end is a lot of people coming for projects where they want to do additions on their home, not simply just for design or for the sake of doing something like that. It's genuinely because their families are growing. Maybe people have an in-law that they're living with, or they just had another kid, or a lot of things that you're seeing right now too is a lot of the younger generations that are getting pushed out of housing. A lot of them are still living with their families. So it's been a complete change to have that ADU put in place and to make it less restrictive, because now people can, let's say, build something out in their basement, or like you said, if there's a huge cottage in your backyard that you can transform into another unit, now you can utilize that to create more space for your family. So definitely ADUs. Yep,
Question on that, not to get, we can go down the rabbit hole and be here for hours probably on
for
like the
sure.
specifics of everything, but like, what is something that's easier now? What does it mean to have a lesser of a hoop to jump through? um any
Yeah. So I
any
mean,
example will do.
like for instance, let's say you're seeking a variance for, let's say there was a specific setback, and this can vary from city to city. That's why
Yeah,
I'm not giving you like a straight particular answer.
of
But I've
course.
had people come for, hey, the setback was this, and I'm looking to get a variance for this because I can't build this ADU out because of this particular setback. That's something that we could look at and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't affecting your neighbor, or you're still within a specific distance from your neighbor who's abutting you.
Hmm.
Will approve that. So that's just one thing. I've seen a couple different scenarios before, but what's interesting is is we live in a city or just a state in general where lots get split up and it's super weird. I don't know how to describe it, but if you're familiar with zoning, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Maybe you'll have somebody in 1930, they did a subdivision
Yeah.
on a lot and it's the weirdest subdivision you've ever seen, but
Yeah. It's all like.
somehow it's all crooked looking, but it's still in place even till today. And we have to look at those particular lots and still be able to pass certain variances on lots like that as well. So that's just, I'm just giving you an example, but Massachusetts in particular, because we're such an old state, you get so many old lots and things like that. So definitely setbacks. That's something that we could jump through hoops for that. You know, you wouldn't, if you were to jump through more hoops to get that, it'd probably be easier to get approved.
Great.
Gotcha.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
A few welcomes. We got Top Quality Services Inc., Delory Law, our guy Andrew, he's on the house. Chris Aguirre, Kevin Rosado, Sine Loans, a bunch of new people.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining,
Yeah.
guys. We knew Ash would drive a crowd. So
Ash
Yeah.
bringing in his own posse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. A couple of things. A couple of things that I wanted to ask. Taylor, what's up? Thanks for joining. The so one of the things you mentioned in your notes in advance of the live today was missing middle housing. That's the first time I've heard that phrase. Can you
Oh yeah.
explain what that is and what it means when it comes to zoning?
So I pointed that out because townhouses has been a huge restriction. And, you know, I'm not sure what cities or what other cities are doing. I can only speak for my city. But, you know, one thing that I would love to see more of is townhouses, you know, townhouses, condos. I think a lot of people go for these big buildings, these big rental buildings. But the reason why I made an emphasis on middle housing was it's specifically those two things, townhouses and condos, because I think those could provide a low entry point for buyers who necessarily can't afford a single family, right? Or maybe they're a young professional, they don't need all that space, but they still would want to benefit from home ownership. I think
Got
it's
it.
going to give them that opportunity. And another thing too, on the city end of things, when you're doing all these rental buildings, you know, you're not creating a sense of ownership for people who purchase in the city. And when you get into quote unquote middle housing, not only do we get more inventory, but the people who are buying, they're buying into the city.
Hmm.
And you can get that sense of ownership where these people are going to be more tied into the community and the development in the community versus somebody who was renting.
Got it. So when you talk about middle housing, you're talking about like size.
Correct.
You're talking about like single family versus high rise, larger buildings. You're not talking about those. You're talking about the middle, like, you know,
Yeah.
2 unit buildings, 3 unit buildings, maybe 4 unit buildings. That
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I think specifically mostly, you know, townhouses,
got
things that people can create ownership with.
got you.
That's my main emphasis.
Got it.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask about, just going back to something that Mike mentioned, was transit, right? So can you talk a little bit about how things have changed when it comes to zoning laws
Yeah.
around, like, you know, the T around commuter rail, things like that, like any trends you've seen or anything that people should kind of note if they're out in the market, whether they're investor, developer, buyer, etc.
This has been out for some time, but cities are still sort of kind of voting it in. But been a huge push for multifamilies,
Hmm.
specifically three families, to get built around transit areas or anywhere where there's a T stop. Just because, again, you guys probably know there's a lot of people trying to house hack, but multifamilies have also become a rarity.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think multifamilies are very powerful, right? I'm sure you guys can agree with me. You know, but again, we don't have so many of that. So there was a huge controversy with, I think there was a city in the South Shore who didn't vote it through, but that's something that most cities are trying to vote through now to be able to have space near multifamilies, near transit. And
So you mean
one thing that I'm just,
you mean building new ones?
yeah, building new ones. So there's a specific push for that, right?
Got it.
Where if you're within a T stop, you can actually go for a multifamily.
Got it.
Uh,
I think
yeah,
I think that's really interesting because
Yeah.
the trend has been um, like, well, obviously there are a lot of multifamilies, but they're all old,
yeah,
right? Like
correct.
all of them are old. Maybe they've been renovated on the inside to an extent. Maybe one unit has been renovated, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Or you see these multifamilies that have been acquired and then turned into condos, right?
Yeah. So
You don't see new multifamilies. That is
Yeah.
there you go.
so what Ash is talking about, I think, is really interesting and something to keep in mind because unlike other parts of the country, you aren't seeing new multifamily. So if this does pass and you start to kind of see developers kind of grab onto it, especially around transit, it becomes really interesting for
Yeah.
investors and house.
Yeah.
And house hackers too, because that's also something that's been powerful. People could get into a three-family house,
Yeah,
hack it,
right.
and lower their mortgage payment, which has been a huge tool. It's just now we don't really have that many three families that
Yeah.
you could.
It's funny how that just from my own reading and stuff, the it's funny how each time period produces that. So like that's why every multifamily is like 1890, 1900, 1910 build is because when that's all those were coming up and that was the actual intent of those was to find
Yeah,
like an ability to either you had generations of your family in one house or the
correct.
intent was for somebody to own it and rent it out to even back then. And then when the
Mm,
19, I think 70s or 80s came along, that's when the condoization of these things actually started. So in all
mm,
that time, there wasn't any of that. And of course, um, you have people not building them for that time, and then one by one they get taken and converted into condos and
hmm.
sent that way. So it's a very, very interesting. Just like now, this could be a budding new thing, and people can look back on this time period as like a new generation of these particular properties. I think that's great.
Yeah, and we need it. You know, we need more multis. So that's been huge. And I just want to point out the piece on it being in a right near a
Yeah,
transit location, which I think was very strategic because again, traffic has been a huge pain point or just a sticking point for a lot of people. So being able to do that near a transit, which again would limit, you know, the amount of cars people are using. People could take the train instead of driving. So yeah, that's just my thought process on it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sada, like this can even go back to last week when we were talking about like the economical way for builders in like more expensive suburbs is to take maybe the old Cape and on the same footprint of land build the attached single families that are there
Yeah,
so you can sell
yeah,
two dwellings instead of um, having the one.
yeah.
So
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, I don't think, and I will say one thing to add to that though is that I don't think that's just the suburbs. You're seeing that in the city too, right? Like where they can, like,
yeah,
yeah,
I say the suburbs, but it's Boston almost has like these hybrid where it's like just outside the city, kind
yeah,
of
like
right.
Greater
It's not truly a
Boston.
city. Was
yeah,
that?
yeah, right,
Yeah, and like you were referring to Greater Boston, those outskirts cities.
Yeah.
Quincy's a good one. Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
so can you talk about like, so for example, I live in a historical house, right?
Yeah.
So like this association I'm a part of, it's 4 units. It's a historical like structure. So
Hmm.
got renovated in 2017, all that kind of jazz. But there's some rules that need to be followed. So there's something to be said when it comes to zoning around preserving character and things like that. What are you seeing as part of a zoning board in terms of like, are the rules changing to kind of support that, especially in a state like Massachusetts where you have so many of these like older homes and like mansions that are converted into multiple units and all that kind of stuff? What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because I see it go two directions, right? You'll obviously because it's historical, there's a limit on what you can touch and what you can't touch, and mostly the inside of the properties, like gut rehabs, you'll be able to get away and be able to do that. However, let's say there's some sort of historical exposed brick on the outside. You have to keep that
Right.
consistent with the guidelines for the city. But one thing that I've been noticing is, depending on how big, let's say there's like a huge landmark building, like an old church or something like that, the city would still push to keep it. And this is not specific to my city. I've seen a lot of cities do this, but the use of what it's being used for is what they mostly look at. So they try to push it towards something that could benefit the community. For instance, housing for the elderly and stuff like that. I've seen old historical churches. The exteriors stay consistent, obviously, to preserve that historical character, but they'll use it to build out condos for assisted living or something
For a
like that. So
specific
Mm,
yeah,
community
yeah,
focused purpose.
exactly. Yeah, because usually they wouldn't just let anyone do that type of
Mm,
conversion. So if it's something that already has so much historical impact on the city, if you're going to convert it, you might as well convert it into something that benefits the community.
yeah.
yeah.
So that's one thing that I've been seeing. But then obviously you go to Newberry Street, you see all these beautiful historical brownstones. They'll gut renovate those, they'll sell those. But those are the directions that I see it go.
Interesting.
Gotcha. Ash is talking about those Newberry brownstones because he's looking for that next $6 million
Yeah.
Yeah,
property.
man.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Those are something
DM
that.
Ash, DM Ash, and maybe DM me on the side. Boom.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll just
Those.
be here. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
but definitely, I'd say the use of it. That's been something that's been big. What are you
Yeah.
using it for?
Yeah.
Who are you marketing it to? So if it's more geared towards the community, it's a lot more beneficial. Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I know Mike has a question or two. I'm just going to say hello to a few people. Uzair, we got Jay Linares. I want to say Manjoga is the
Man,
username.
yoga.
Wednesday 32, Hustling in the house, bunch of new people. So welcome
Awesome.
everybody. If you guys have questions morning today, if you like, and Ash has a plethora of experience with it. So if you guys have questions about zoning or anything else related to what we've discussed, please leave them in the comments. We're here for another 6-7 minutes or so, and we'll try to cover it. If we don't cover it today, we'll definitely hit on it another time, or
Yep.
DM us or something like that. We'll definitely touch on it. But Mike, go ahead.
Yeah. Ash, I think Everett is like such an interesting place because you have essentially two very rare things. One already built, as in the casino,
Mm,
and that changed the landscape of everything in Everett. But now the proposed soccer field and soccer stadium to go there. So I guess has that influenced? You had to be talking about this at the zoning meetings. Like, what are those conversations like
yeah,
surrounding
yeah.
this?
I mean, definitely a lot of buzz. We are a hot spot for just building and development in general, within reason, because obviously that space where the casino is and where all these proposed projects are being laid out, there weren't really much use for them anyway. So I'm glad we're rehauling it and we're turning it into something that the community can actually benefit from. It's just seeing it from my end. It's generating a lot of buzz. I think the biggest thing though is you have two sides to the equation where there's people who are super supportive of all the growth that's going on, and then there's a lot of people who, you gotta understand, this is like a legacy city. A lot of people have been here for generations and generations and generations. So when you're coming in and you're proposing all of these big things, there's some people that are not going to feel happy about it per se. And this is where the balancing comes in, because I think the growth is good. It's just growing it in a sustainable way where people are saying, hey, we're growing, but we're not growing at a pace where we feel like we're pushing people out,
Yeah.
or yeah, or you're tearing down some sort of like ranch single family that's been there for years to build more housing that's going to support the casino or whatnot. So that's kind of been the two sides that I've
On, on
been at. Yeah.
that on that note, have there been meaningful conversations where people have changed their sentiment? Maybe they
Yeah.
were anti. everything at the beginning, but they see that it comes out well.
Yeah, definitely, because there's been a huge push for a train station to get built in
Oh,
Everett. We haven't had
okay.
that in years. A lot of people just do a quick pit stop in our city and then they're off to wherever they're going to. So I think that's been something that has shifted a lot of people's perspectives because we're such a hustle and bustle. There's a lot of people here that work in the city. So to be able to bring some sort of T stop to Everett, I think that's been huge. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you so like I think what you're talking about too is like getting the public involved, right?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
so like how do you do that effectively? Because naturally you do that, you invite a lot of like, arguments, like
Yeah,
naysayers, things like that. So as somebody who's on the zoning board, like how does that work?
it's definitely a tough challenge because there's a lot of opinions,
Yeah,
so
of course.
many opinions. It's just me, I would rather have more opinions from the residents than not have any at all. Because again, this city is for the people that live in it. And like I said, that's what I was bringing out, that whole concept of ownership and buying into the communities and developing more ownership. Getting the perspective from the community, it kind of helps you map out which projects you want to approve, which projects you don't want to approve, because you want to make sure it appeals to everybody. Not everyone's going to be happy, right? Maybe one person said, I don't want this, and
Yeah,
somebody else says, hey, like, I want this, but I don't want it this way. And that's where approving projects with certain conditions comes into play, So that way, hey, I'll approve this, but maybe I'll add a condition to it so it appeases this person as well. So from my perspective, it's been tough because people get very passionate
of course.
about it, especially if they've lived there for years. But
Yeah.
the way that I try to play it is, hey, I'm taking your opinion into account. I'm taking this person's opinion into account. How can I merge both perspectives into something where people don't feel like they're losing, but also they're also gaining as well? So,
And
yeah,
that creates the kind of goodwill that's like it's kind of like builds the community in ways that you don't like it's like deposits into the community
yeah,
without having to kind of like go out of your way. You're just kind of like making sure that you listen to everybody.
yeah,
That's it.
precisely. Right, which is, it's tough. Like I said, it's tough. Even some people, you still can't make them happy.
No.
Not everyone,
Right.
like
Right.
yeah, and you still get a lot of heat for it. But at the end of
Like
the day, I think
my
it's
mom.
just,
Like my mom. She's
yeah,
not gonna be pleased with anything. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the way it
But
works.
that's why all of our meetings are open to the public. Everything's posted on the website. We have an open
Right.
quorum where we allow people to speak in favor or against certain things. So that way, everyone's being heard. So,
Right. Right. Love it, man. This was
thank
great.
you.
Mike,
Yeah,
Mike, any other questions? Any last questions?
I mean, we could go on forever, but we're
yeah.
respectful of time. So
Yeah.
we'll
So
have to.
Ash,
We'll
what
all
we'll
link
do,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll definitely link up like properly in person and what have you. I mean, we'll see you at the Evo event
yeah,
next
we're
month.
doing
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
doing a huge networking event at Tall Ship for anybody who's still on this live. I'd love a formal invite. I'd love to see you guys. I'm sure I'm gonna see both of you
yep,
guys there. So it'll be
yep,
great to just
absolutely.
network.
We'll
Yeah.
be there, but this probably will not be the last time you'll be on Story Time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I'll pop
so,
in again.
because
Yeah.
obviously zoning changes, real estate changes, all that kind of stuff. I think it'll be really interesting to have you on in like 6 months or something like that. So everybody
Yeah.
who's listening in, stay tuned. If you liked what Ash had to say, please follow him, DM him. He's awesome. One of the
Thank you. Thank you.
one of the genuine guys in Greater Boston real estate, and it's been a pleasure to see you grow too. So
No, that means a lot.
excited to have you a part of Story Time. Thank you for joining, can't wait for the next time. But anyways, he's Ash. That's Mike. I'm Saad. This is Story Time. We'll see you guys next week.
We'll see you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Take
Bye
care, Ash.
bye.
Bye, Ash.
Bye.